Do you wonder if you're the best version of yourself? This is the question we seek to answer in this podcast. We reveal information that helps you recover your health and become resilient. Modern life makes us fragile. Our diet, lifestyle, and environment set us up for failure. We do not accept this. We seek optimization. We strive to become dynamic. Hey, what's going on? Dr. Chris here. Time for a little story time. This will probably be kind of a short podcast, although I don't know, I tend to go on. So a few weeks ago, I went boating with some friends, and I was out in the Florida sun for probably too long. Got a little bit of a sunburn. Not so bad that I was peeling the next day or anything like that, but my skin definitely got red, and I failed to put anything on my lips, so my lips definitely got a little burned. And the next day, I felt this pressure in my lips, and then the day after that, I developed blisters, like sun blisters. And then maybe a day or two after that, I woke up and I looked like Mr. Potato Head. My bottom lip was very swollen for about 2 to 3 days. That finally went down, and I had blisters on the bottom lip at this time. Okay, and this is swollen like it looked ridiculous. My wife said my lips looked like a hot dog bun. Well, that went away, and then I developed a blister on the top lip, and then shortly after that, the top lip swelled. All right, and beyond just a blister, at this point, my wife said I looked like I had a stroke because it was on one side. So, and then my bottom was swelled again. So so it was like bottom right was swollen, the top left. So I looked like crooked. It was really kind of hilarious, actually. So what was going on there? And this is going to lead into a conversation about allostatic load. So I don't know for sure. I didn't go to the hospital. I didn't get tested. But I do know that I have a shellfish allergy. I tested that about 3 years ago. And, I got a food sensitivity test 3 years ago. Found out all kinds of things I'm, very sensitive to, particularly gluten's the big one. But shellfish, corn, egg white, dairy. So I went strict for about 6 months, and then I started slowly bringing stuff back in. Time after time, I would react to gluten, like 100% of the time. The shrimp, shellfish didn't seem to bother me much, so I kind of slowly, over a couple of years, it started to creep back into my diet, and it never seemed to bother me at all. Now, going back to when my lips first became swollen, the night before the first one, I had oysters. And then the night before the top lip swelled, I had shrimp. So that's the only common denominator that I can think of. So why did I suddenly have this reaction? Part of me thinks that the sores maybe opened up and some of the fluid from the shellfish got into the bloodstream in the local area. That probably makes the most sense. But really, I think what's going on is this idea of allostatic load. So I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. So allostatic load, or another way to say it is the exposome, is this idea of the sum total of stresses placed upon your body. Now, these could be internal stressors, like perceived stress, like your boss sucks and you're having a fight with your spouse type of thing. It could be other internal stressors, such as blood sugar dysregulation, poor sleep, things like that. It could be external stressors. So this could be, lack of movement or too much movement, so too overtraining. It could be food sensitivity. It could be exposure to some sort of environmental toxin, such as a mold, or maybe you work around heavy, chemicals that are heavy duty. Or maybe you have some sort of metal toxicity. Maybe you eat a lot of, tuna and you have, mercury exposure. So if you add all these stressors up, right, then the body will kind of let you know. And this is what, I've been talking about, this idea of the canary and the coalmine. So whatever system of the body is sort of the most vulnerable, or your weakest point is a better way to say it. I think of it as like the weak link in your armor. That tends to rise to the surface first. And I see this time and time again. So I'll see somebody for back pain or knee pain or whatever joint it is. And yeah, there's definitely evidence of some sort of mechanical issue. But I always inquire about what's going on in their life. And I would say 90% of the time, there is some preceding stressful event. That could be something as simple as traveling. Been traveling for a couple weeks, poorly slept, probably ate pretty poorly, probably drank too much alcohol. Maybe there's some finance stresses that concern that. Just getting out of your normal sync of things, disturbing your circadian rhythm. That could be enough to set off whatever your canary in the coal mine is. There's a reason I see accountants in April. I see teachers after grading season. I see people after they've had some sort of trauma in their life, like loss of a sibling or a parent. It's without fail. So people ask me a lot, you think it's this or do you think it's that? And the answer when it comes to the body is always yes. It's all the above. It's D, all the above. And I want to bring this up because I think it's important to keep this all in perspective, right? Because if you suddenly have back pain on top of loss of a sibling, for example, it's going to be like the sky is falling. I just lost my sibling. Now I got to deal with this on top of that. And maybe I have a real problem. Maybe I have to get surgery. And then the mind starts to wander. And then you start to get onto WebMD and, then you go down that rabbit hole. And that's a terrible idea, by the way. Don't do that. When the truth is, you should think of it. I like to reframe this idea. You can think of it as it's letting you know what your weakest link is. So think of it almost like you've gained an insight into your body. So it's almost like you got an image without having to actually go and get an image. So you can almost be thankful in a sense. So, okay, this is the area of my body that I need to work on when things are back to normal. When you start to think of things this way, you kind of take away that catastrophizing. When you realize pain is more of information, just like hot or cold, it's a sensation. It usually precedes real damage. It's your body's intelligence kind of give you a warning shot. Because what can happen if you kind of think about pain the wrong way and really start to fascinate about it and think, okay, this is the end of the world, sky's falling. That's an easy way to fall into an oversensitivity syndrome, aka chronic pain. So once you perceive things as a real threat, that turns that sensitivity dial way up. And that's not to say that, this is all in your head. I'm definitely not saying that at all. The pain you're experiencing is real, but the way your nervous system interprets that pain signal can be modulated around how you perceive what's going on. It reminds me of being in high school and you get a pimple, and maybe it's a small pimple, but you're staring at it, you look at it, you're obsessing over it, and somehow in your mind it becomes way bigger than it actually is. We kind of can do the same thing with pain. So what to do about all this? Okay, so you've got some valuable insight. You've got some information from your body saying you have a weak link in your armor. So keep that on the back burner. This is an area I need to improve to become more resilient down the road so that the next weakest link shows up instead of this. You keep approaching things that way. Over time, you get really resilient and not a lot of things set you back. Then start to think about, okay, what kind of stressors are affecting me? And think about all of these things I'm talking about, not just how you're moving or whatnot, but are you sleeping enough? That's probably the biggest one. What is your stress levels like at work and your relationship and finances? What is there some sort of environmental thing that you're exposed to? And then you just eliminate what you can and then mitigate what you can. When you start paying attention to these things, I think you'll realize pretty quickly that there's a lot of stressors to your body, to your person that you probably can easily do without. For example, the news. That was one with me, The news is never good, especially in recent years. And I was watching the news every morning and I was getting stressed out. I was like, well, why, if I'm not doing anything with this information, I'm just regurgitating it or getting frustrated about it. Well, if I'm not going to run for office, then what am I doing with all this information? You know what? I just don't have the bandwidth to deal with that type of stress. So I just eliminated it. Maybe that's not for you, but start to look at all the things that kind of piss you off and, see which ones are really actually important to you. Here's a simple one, circadian disruption. So your circadian rhythm is, very important when it comes to sleep. And something you have a fair amount of control over. So that is set in the morning by sunlight in the eyes and it turns off, but, well, it's supposed to downregulate as the day goes on, but can be interrupted by too much blue light exposure. So that's easy enough, right? You can get up in the morning and, I usually have a cup of coffee on my patio and try to get light in my eyes. That's the first thing I do. Maybe that's not super important to you, but on the back end, the blue light exposure at night, that's a big deal. You can either be really diligent about not being around electronics, or you can put red light filters on your phones. If you want to watch Netflix, get some blue light blocking glasses. There's simple steps you can do to mitigate a very important stressor. Here's another environmental stressor that you have some control over: plastic. If you start to pay attention to how much plastic your body and your mouth touches per day, it's kind of frightening. And we already know that we're finding plastic in our tissues, in our arteries. A recent study came out that correlated plastic in arteries to heart disease. No surprise there, right? And we know that testosterone sort of worldwide is dropping from all these microplastics in the fish and now in our diet. So some things like you can think about, like, what's your cutting board? Do you have a plastic cutting board? You shave off some of that plastic, and that goes in your food for sure, right? There's, plastic water bottles. Just don't get a plastic water bottle. Drink out of a, metal or glass. That's an easy one. Think about how many times you get food to go and it's in some sort of plastic container, and hot, by the way, which is even worse. And you're eating it with a plastic fork, and you're touching the plastic bag, and the receipt that they hand you, that's actually coated in plastic. Or if it's on a paper plate, there's actually a coating of plastic in there. Even like a soda can, the inside's got plastic in there. It's crazy how much plastic. Your toothbrush, the bristles are plastic. And, you might be saying, like, okay, so what? You touch a plastic fork. Well, if you start to pay attention to how much you're touching plastic and putting plastic in your mouth, like your dental floss, for example, that starts to add up over time, over years. I read one study that said that if you have a bottle of water, like a plastic bottle of water per day, that's the equivalent to having 12 credit cards, ingesting 12 credit cards per year. So it's basically a credit card per month. That is a major stressor. And by the way, ladies with makeup, a lot of the makeups are endocrine disruptors. You don't want to mess with hormones. Hormones are super potent. And once those go off, kind of everything else goes off. So major internal stressor. So if you've got something going on, like a pain or something you can't quite explain, and maybe you've tried physio and you tried X, Y, and Z, and nothing seems to be budging it that much, or maybe things are helping a bit but not getting rid of it, I would suggest to get a pen and paper out, write down any possible stressor, internal or external, that you can think of that may be affecting you. And then you go through and sort of, try to cross off things that you can, like plastic bottles, watching the news, whatever, and then go through the things that you might have question marks around. Do I have mold in my house, for example, and test for those things. Once you have some answers, then, have another column in your little sheet of paper. How do you mitigate this or eliminate it? And basically just come up with strategies around all those things. And if you feel like you can't do that on your own or you need some help, give us a call. This is what functional medicine is. We do free, for the time being, free initial consults. We can get a list of your symptoms and kind of match them to things that we think you should test. Going back to my original story, my swollen Mr. Potato Head lips, had I not known about my shellfish allergy, from my food sensitivity testing, I don't know. I probably would have ended up in the ER freaking out and probably making things worse. So, test, don't guess. Okay, I think I covered it for now. I will drop a link where you can book a call online if you'd like, if you need some more help. Otherwise, I'll be talking to you soon. A ship in harbor is safe, but that's not what ships are meant to do. What does this mean? It means exposing yourself to difficult situations so you become resilient. If you need help building resilience, check out our flagship program called Physiologic Flexibility. This is a 3-month do-it-yourself program that teaches you how to maximize your homeostatic regulators, such as your pH, blood glucose, O2 and CO2 tolerance, and temperature. We give you specific action items through the program with the goal of becoming anti-fragile. If you want to become the inspiration for your friends and family, this is the program for you.